What's up, folks? I'm Chris, your NFL writer here at Occupy Fantasy, here with a look at week number 9 of the NFL season here on DraftKings and FanDuel. We got a 12-game slate here on DraftKings, 13 on FanDuel, which includes the Sunday Night Football game between the Minnesota Vikings and the Indianapolis Colts. As always, going to go through my favorite play on the slate, some of the best running backs to play based off of where their teams sit in betting markets in terms of projected positive games group situations. This week, we have a lot of injuries to talk about that are actually opening up a potential list of opportunities as well for high-risk contests. So we do have a lot to discuss this week. First things first, Atlanta's Bijan Robinson. Falcons are 3-point favorites at home against the Dallas Cowboys this week. They're also playing in the highest total game in betting markets at 51.5 points. The reason that Bijan Robinson is my personal favorite play on this slate is the fact that the Falcons have the 5th best run-blocking offensive line this season by adjusted line yards. The Cowboys have been getting absolutely eviscerated on the ground by teams this season. They rank 30th by DVOA defending the rush, and they are also susceptible to some opportunity in the passing game. They're the 2nd worst defense defending running backs through the air on the season, and Bijan has seen his target volume increase in recent weeks. You see he had 7 targets last week, but 5 targets the week before that with Seattle. So I do think we have a decent floor of opportunity for Bijan Robinson and a great opportunity for him to capitalize on those opportunities in this game against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, running backs that are in favorable game script situations, in addition to Bijan, that should be popular this week, we look at the biggest favorites on the slate. The Baltimore Ravens are favored by 10 points at home against the Denver Broncos this week. So Derrick Henry, who has scored a touchdown in every single game this season, should probably be on the table as an option for low-risk contests. However, he's not projecting to be super popular this week, which means he's a great play in tournaments on DraftKings and FanDuel. Henry is actually the number 1 ranked running back in our model this week, but he's projecting for under 5% ownership on DraftKings, under 10% ownership on FanDuel. The Denver Broncos are a tough run defense, but this is King Henry, right? We say that week in and week out when he's on this list. Matchup-proof running back, best running back in the league here, always in play, especially when no one else is really playing him week to week. Saquon Barkley and the Philadelphia Eagles are favored by 8 points at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Saquon is also going to be less than 10% owned on DraftKings and FanDuel this week. The Jaguars are a above average rush defense, but they are well below average defending running backs in the passing game. We haven't really seen the target volume for Saquon in recent weeks, but that would be the best spot for him to do some damage this weekend. I think playing Saquon is a good hedge against the passing game for the Eagles this week as well. Not in the low-risk pool on DraftKings or FanDuel. A couple of running backs that are in the low-risk pool this week based off of their salary, matchup, and opportunity. The Cincinnati Bengals are favored by 7.5 points this week against the Las Vegas Raiders. And that is good news for Chase Brown, who's just $5,900 here on DraftKings. He's just $6,300 over on FanDuel. And we also got news on the injury report that Zach Moss is doubtful to play with a neck injury, which means Chase Brown, who has already been seeing basically 2/3 of the opportunities in this 1A, 1B backfield in recent weeks, should be in line for a full workload now as a bell cow against the Raiders. The Raiders are a bottom 8 rush defense this season, and they are the 3rd worst defense defending running backs in the passing game. So in a positive game script, I think you can expect 15 carries for Brown, 3 to 4 targets now, if not more touches than that. And at his price, this is a no-brainer opportunity, I think. You should see Chase Brown in virtually every low-risk lineup this week as a result. Now, the New Orleans Saints are favored by 7 points this week against the lowly Carolina Panthers. And Kendre Miller out this week with an injury. Jamal Williams doubtful to play. It means he's basically out this week with an injury. That means Alvin Kamara is here once again in week number 9. Panthers are the 2nd worst rush defense and the 4th worst defense defending running backs in the passing game. Kamara is going to be your running back that I think people use to round out low-risk lineups here on DraftKings this week. I do think this is my preferred path to low-risk builds. Bijan Robinson, Chase Brown, and Alvin Kamara on DraftKings. Now, over on FanDuel, Aaron Jones with the Minnesota Vikings is going to be the most popular play at the position in that Sunday Night Football game between the Vikings and the Colts. Has one of the highest weighted opportunity projections in our model, which means basically he should see the most touches at the position. He's inside the top 6 for us, and obviously not available to you DraftKings players, but going to be the most popular play on FanDuel. So you absolutely should be considering Aaron Jones in low risk. The Colts are actually slightly above average defending the rush, and they are basically dead on league average defending running backs in the passing game. But Aaron Jones, 7,500 here on FanDuel, is going to be a low-risk play as well. I like pairing him with Bijan and Chase Brown. Let's talk about a couple of injury situations that could blow up this entire formula, this entire slate, depending on what happens Sunday morning. First is going to be the Tennessee Titans. Tyjae Spears has been out for a couple of weeks with a hamstring injury. This week, Tony Pollard, who does project to be popular right now in our model, did not practice at all and is listed questionable. If Pollard is unable to play on Sunday against the Patriots, then we're going to have Julius Chestnut as the expected starter at running back. He's $4,000 here on DraftKings. He's $4,500 over on FanDuel. That's going to completely blow up the slate. And with Jacksonville, Tank Bigsby is questionable this week. Travis Etienne Jr. is a game-time decision this week. If, for whatever reason, both of these guys miss, Dearness Johnson should be the favorite to get the majority of the touches in the Jaguars' backfield. He's $4,700 here on DraftKings. He's $5,000 over on FanDuel. Heaven forbid we get both of those spots. Good luck figuring out what to do in tournaments this week. The good thing that would come from either of these guys being a play, from both of these guys being a play, is that it will allow us to do pretty much anything we want with our high-risk lineups. But that is the rundown of what we're looking at running back here and the two key injury situations that could blow up the slate. All right. Now, in low-risk lineups in general this week, there are a few pass catchers that will be popular on both DraftKings and FanDuel, and it seems like Drake London is in the 2023 Tyler Lockett realm where they just refuse to raise his salary to a meaningful place that would make people actually consider another wide receiver in low-risk contests. Playing in the highest total game on the slate at home, and his salary came down $500 from last week here on DraftKings, so he's an auto-click here. In low risk, is going to be the most popular wide receiver in low risk contests. We can comfortably project London for 6+ targets at this salary against Dallas, and in a good spot to succeed as well with Kirk Cousins facing a bottom 5 pass defense in the NFL. The other wide receiver that you will see in pretty much every low risk lineup this week, Ladd McConkey with the Los Angeles Chargers. Target volume has been incredible in recent weeks. Chargers are getting a little healthier, actually. They're expecting Quentin Johnson to return. There's a chance DJ Chark returns this week. Hayden Hurst could return at tight end. But this is their number one receiver, guys. $5,600 here on DraftKings and $6,400 over on FanDuel. Now at tight end, he's been a play for a couple of weeks. Dallas Goedert's backup, Grancadara, is going to start again because Goedert is missing his 3rd consecutive game. And he is extremely cheap at the tight end position. And the field is going to be all over this week. Now, the target volume you see in recent weeks has not been super impressive. Just 4 total targets in his 2 starts. But now against Jacksonville, who is the 2nd worst defense defending tight ends in the NFL, the field is ready to pounce. So Calcaterra is playable in low risk, and I think it'll allow you to pay up for one more better wide receiver, one more better running back opportunity like a Kamara and a Bijan together. So that is primarily the reason I think you will see Calcaterra in low risk lineups this week. At the quarterback position, on DraftKings, Geno Smith leads the NFL in passing yardage this season. So that means we can comfortably project the volume in the passing game for Geno here. And he's playing the Los Angeles Rams at home as a slight underdog, but the Rams are a below average pass defense. So at $5,800, this is a spot that the field is going to be on in low risk. The other spot, we go down even further on the salary table, at just $5,200, priced like a backup quarterback, which might be accurate. I digress. Daniel Jones is facing a Commanders pass defense that is below average this season. I think we have been pouncing on the Commanders defense pretty much all season long. They're also below average against the rush, and we know that Daniel Jones has that upside. It's been a couple of weeks since he has executed on it, but he does have the ability to make plays with his legs as well. Daniel Jones also going to be throwing to 2 underperforming wide receivers that are good plays this week. More on that in a little bit. So on DraftKings specifically at 5,200, what he allows you to do with the rest of your lineup, Daniel Jones is going to be your low-risk play. See, we have $4,000 left to build our low-risk lineup here on DraftKings. The most popular defense plays this week are actually going to be punts. So the Dolphins are underdogs against the Bills. The Jaguars are underdogs against the Eagles. And then we have the Broncos, who are massive underdogs against the Baltimore Ravens. These defenses, however, project to be the most popular plays just because of where they fit on the salary table and what they allow you to fit around the defense in your low-risk lineups this week. Dolphins are probably my preferred option in this range. I think a division game could be a little more competitive. But with 5,500 remaining at the wide receiver position, there are a lot of receivers in this range that are playable. Looking in our model, the most popular one is going to be Jacoby Myers with the Las Vegas Raiders. But if we drop our DraftKings salary slider to the $5,500 range, we've got Jerry Jeudy with Cleveland, Keon Coleman with the Bills, Jalen Waddle with the Dolphins. These guys are all solid options as well if you want to pivot away from Jacoby Myers in low-risk contests. Now, over on FanDuel, CeeDee Lamb is going to be one of the most popular wide receiver plays. In addition to those values with London and McConkey, we have Calcaterra here at tight ends. That is going to be popular at 5,200. We have that cheap defense play with the Dolphins. Now, in this particular build with these high upside running backs with CeeDee Lamb in here, it's pretty hard to get the quarterback that I think you need this week, which is going to be one of Daniel Jones at 6,600. And then we have two options that also are going to be in play here. We have Sam Darnold with the Vikings, and then we have Geno Smith at $7,400. I think probably the play here is to massage the wide receiver spot a little bit, come down from CeeDee Lamb. And our model really likes Malik Neighbors at $8,400. That actually does give you enough to get to Daniel Jones with this low-risk lineup. But once again, keep an eye on those injuries with the Tennessee and the Jacksonville running backs, because if we get a super cheap punt running back option, then that'll really allow us to do pretty much anything we want in both low and high-risk contests this week. So speaking of the high-risk contests, another slate where we have half the games with teams favored by basically a touchdown or more. So I do think we can go with smaller correlations again, no bringbacks, 2-1s. And so if we do get a value like Julius Chestnut, for example, then it's really just going to blow up the slate. So I want to be clear, we don't know this is going to happen, but just kind of show you what you can do. My favorite game stack is going to be Dallas and Atlanta at that super high total. So on the underdog side, obviously you can go with Prescott, Lamb, and you can go with Bijan as a bringback at running back. Talked about values like Grancadara at tight end, the cheap defenses, and you can absolutely make a build like this work. However, you don't have to play Dak. You can play Kirk Cousins. You can play Drake London. This is a 3-1. Even with 3,600 remaining, you can do this. Calcaterra is cheap at tight end. You can play the cheap Dolphins defense, and you can play a wide receiver in that price range, right? So you see what happens if we get this punt play. It's really going to blow the slate wide open. Now, I think a more realistic look at this would be, let's talk about the Titans backup running back or the Jacksonville backup running back not being available. $44.50 per player remaining. There are plenty of affordable wide receivers this week. Once again, Cleveland's Cedric Tillman is in an affordable salary range. 9+ targets in his 2 starts since the Amari Cooper trade. Just $4,300 here on DraftKings, $6,100 over on FanDuel. In addition to Tillman, we have a definite injury situation we could take advantage of at Jacksonville wide receiver. So Christian Kirk, unfortunately, out for the season. He's on injured reserve. Gabriel Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. are both game time decisions here for Jacksonville, which opens up opportunity for these secondary wide receivers on Jacksonville. Parker Washington is going to be the best one to deploy. He actually ran the most routes at wide receiver for Jacksonville last week, and the majority of them, like 90% of those routes, were from outside the numbers. So there is going to be a ceiling here accessible for Washington against Philadelphia in a game script where the Jaguars will be chasing points. He's $3,600 here on DraftKings, and over on FanDuel, he is just $5,400. So Parker Washington is a great value at receiver. You can use Washington. You can use Cedric Tillman. Those are my 2 favorite values at wide receiver this week, and I think that kind of opens up the slate for you in high risk as well. Now, we usually have a large list of underperforming wide receivers. These are receivers who have had a ton of targets and air yards in recent weeks, but have not necessarily capitalized on those opportunities. We have a more condensed list this week. Two of them are on the New York Giants. Malik Neighbors, who has been an absolute target machine all season, is our number one underperforming wide receiver this week for the New York Giants at just $7,500. He's by far the most popular play in this group. Neighbors will be featured in a lot of low-risk lineups, but 20 targets, 266 air yards in the last 2 games that he has returned to the lineup. No touchdowns in that sample. Big reason why he's an underperforming wide receiver. His teammate, Darius Slayton, is also on the underperforming wide receiver list. He has 21 targets in the last 3 games, 273 air yards, and no touchdowns as well. So you have a couple of options to pair with Daniel Jones as underperforming wide receivers. We saw a big box score result last week for Tennessee's Calvin Ridley. Ridley is still significantly underperforming his opportunities. He has a well below average catch rate on the season. He has 412 air yards on his 29 targets in Tennessee's last 3 games, 31% of the team targets, 56% of team air yards, and still no touchdowns in that sample. For Calvin Ridley, he should have scored at least 2 touchdowns according to our formula, the way we look at this. NFL wide receivers averaging a touchdown every 170 air yards thus far on the season, and he's well above that since his last touchdown. So Calvin Ridley, we expect him to continue to regress in a way that we can take advantage of. We have Jerry Jeudy with the Cleveland Browns, who has seen a ton of work both pre and post Amari Cooper trade, to be honest with you, but without significant fantasy results. He is also on the list as a tournament play, just $5,100 here on DraftKings, really cheap over on FanDuel. And then we have a pair of Indianapolis Colt wide receivers on the underperforming wide receiver list as well. The first one is Michael Pittman Jr., and the second one is Alec Pierce, who has a really, really low volume but high ADOT role in this offense for the Colts. So you have Pierce at $5,200 here on FanDuel. You have Pittman at $5,800, and you can use both of these guys as cheap plays as well to make some other things fit in your FanDuel lineups this week. Also as part of maybe a Minnesota stack as a bringback as well, which is one of our favorite ways to stack the slate over on FanDuel here in week number 9. So Dallas and Atlanta is one of my favorite stacks. I like the Seattle and Los Angeles Rams game as well. There are opportunities with specifically Seattle here. You got Geno, who's going to be a popular low-risk quarterback. We have JSN, who leads this team in targets. Jake Bobo is the one who's going to play more with DK Metcalf out. However, target volume not really there. Only had 1 target last week, so I'm not sure this is really where we want to go. Tyler Lockett, just 3 targets last week as well. It was kind of a tough game for Seattle against Buffalo, so maybe we throw out the data here a little bit. Probably a little bit better of a play than Bobo, but obviously you have to pay up for it. On the Rams side, you have Cooper Kupp, who's definitely going to be playing. Puka Nacua, a little bit of an injury scare this week with a knee injury, but he's expected to be back this week. And then Kyron Williams, always playable at $8,000, going to be one of the more popular running back plays on this week. So I like using them. And then how about Philadelphia and Jacksonville? You got Jalen Hurts. We have a cheap wide receiver in Parker Washington. We have the already popular Grancadara at tight end. And we got A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith at wide receiver. $62.33 per player remaining to finish up a lineup. There's plenty of ways to stack this slate this week that I think are viable. And that's basically how I'm attacking week number 9 here in the NFL on DraftKings and FanDuel this week. Appreciate you guys watching this video as always. If you have not yet already, we would appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel. We are getting extremely, extremely close to 10,000 subscribers, and I know Brian is going to do a really special giveaway once we hit that number. Please like the video as well. It lets us know that you want to see us continue to make this type of content throughout the NFL season and off season. Super helpful for us to get those as well. Can't express enough how helpful it is for us to get that kind of feedback from you guys. Good luck in week number 9, folks, and I'll be back next week to talk to you about week number 10.